fair or not, the first thing people will notice about you is your age when you're running for this position. So I think the natural question is why should somebody who maybe be twice your age or even more put their trust in somebody who's 23 years old to be their representative on the council?
Yeah, so I've actually been a leader in a lot of different organizations, and I've worked in public policy before. So I've been a leader at a couple of organizations at UT. One was an international organization where we actually were in charge of sending people abroad and bringing them here, and international people working with visas and things like that. So, I've definitely worked through nitty-gritty policy at the federal level like that. And then I've also been the president of a political organization at UT called Young Americans for Liberty. And that's, again, it's a policy organization. We advocate for issues. We can't actually advocate for certain bills or anything. But I grew that organization from 0 to 140 in a year and a half. And with, leadership changes here and there, and I still managed to make it a really successful organization. So I'm definitely, really good at leading people and making sure that we're getting things done in an organized manner. And then I've also worked at the state capitol as an intern. So I've been there. I've been right there reading the bills and really analyzing policy to make sure that we're making right decisions.
What would you say to the person that's out there who says, that's all fine and dandy, but he doesn't know what I've gone through and raising a family and buying houses and paying property taxes and all that kind of stuff. What do you tell to that person?
So I live at home with my parents, so I definitely hear we live in a house in Northwest Hills, so I definitely hear the moaning and crying about the property taxes pretty much every month and how they're always going up. I don't just sit at home and kind of make myself oblivious to the issues that are near and dear to Austinites. One of the things that I've been advocating for on the campaign trail is actually extending the homestead exemption and lowering taxes, making sure that we're being fiscal stewards with whenever we have the chance in the budget. So I am really concerned about the cost of living here. I can't even live outside of my parents' home still. I'm 23. I graduated from UT a year and a half ago, and I still don't have enough savings to move out of my parents' house.
So what do we do about that? How would you make Austin more affordable? What idea might you have that we haven't already heard, that's not already on the table?
Well, so I don't know if it's not something that people haven't already heard, but zoning and land use regulations actually really make our city more unaffordable. I work in real estate right now, and I'm a market analyst. I read every single day about the causes of why land prices are going up.
So what is the cause?
So right now it's zoning. It takes the city so long. It takes them, I think, 100 days or something like that to approve, and that's if they're nice. Sometimes it could take
approve permits.
To approve permits and everything like that. So to approve you to actually build the project. So you could be holding on to the land, which is expensive in itself already, just because maybe it's only residential land. There's industrial and retail and all these other types of land, and so sometimes you even have to get the property rezoned. You have to make sure that you're not doing things wrong with the neighborhood, which could cause trouble. And then by that time, it could be the usual planning phase is it takes about 2 to 3 years to build an apartment, depending on the size and everything. So if you're holding on to something for 2 to 3 years, that's going to cost a lot of money, and it costs millions of dollars.
So the land code then that's something we hear a lot, that we need to do something about the land development code. So then what do we change in the code? Specifically, how do we make this go faster?
So I think there's a lot to be said with just making things electronic and not having one person review every single step in the code. So we vote electronically. We still have to go to the polling booth, but we don't write on paper ballots anymore. We go in and we cast our ballot with a button. There are other. I'm sure there are other examples, but for example, in places like Estonia, which people don't really think of as technological innovation, their government is entirely digital. Yes. So they vote by text message. They can apply for business permits online, and and it takes them about 10 days or something like that to start a business, whereas here I think it takes a little bit longer sometimes. And so there are things to be said with just digitizing our processes so that we can save money. It just makes sense.
There are some people in the city that I think would tell you that they don't want to streamline the building code because they want to keep Austin, Austin. They don't want it to become Houston or Dallas or something. Do you think, though, that we need to make a choice? We either need to be Austin and be expensive or be Dallas and be affordable.
So going back to the code, I mean, there are things like minimum parking requirements and density restrictions that really, I mean, that drive up the cost as well. You know, if in the suburbs you can't really build that much, but, you know, downtown you can build more. I mean, people are going to start building maybe downtown, but it gets more expensive. I think that we can be, well, and I mean, Austin right now is actually one of the most economically segregated cities in the country, so I don't think we want to continue being the Austin that we've been in the past. So I think there's more to be said with loosening restrictions, making sure that, you know, we don't have these outrageous price increases in our property taxes and our rents, so that people don't feel like they have to, you know, I can tell people when they come here, oh yeah, if you go east of I-35, there are going to be more of this type of people, and if you go west of I-35, there are more of this type of people. I don't want to have to say that anymore. I want, you know,
You're referring ethnically.
ethnically,
and race.
yeah, exactly. And it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't. A city shouldn't be divided by the highway. It should be, oh yeah, there are pockets here and there of people, and we want to say that the city is diverse. And I think, you know, we should move forward with something that diversifies our city.
I want to get to something else too, because you have said you want to lower property taxes, but you would also like to improve public transportation and infrastructure. How do you then pay for that if you're going to be lowering property taxes?
Okay, so it goes back to the digitizing. So digitizing things actually frees up capital that we have in the budget. So maybe in the short term, it might cost a lot to digitize something. But if we take away, say, a few positions here and there, because that's what technology in the short term, it removes people from their jobs, but then it makes sure it allows for people to take other positions in, say, city government. The city government has, I believe, on the order of millions of dollars just allocated to staffing right now. Maybe we could move people out of some departments and move them into others. I mean, we have things like that. So I think that, sorry, what was the question? What was the question?
How do we pay for the improvements to public transportation and infrastructure if we're going to be lowering taxes?
Right. So freeing up that capital will allow for increasing things like public transportation. And I've also said that we just need to free up the market for those sorts of things. Right now, we just give Capital Metro almost a monopoly on things like transportation, and then I think we need to bring Uber and Lyft back to the table and really bring them into the fold, because there are people like one of my friends who she used to ride Uber and Lyft to school, and she had to buy a car instead. And so
would you then favor dropping the fingerprint background check requirement and basically succumbing to what Uber has said that they want to do?
So the background check, I don't think necessarily makes us any safer. I mean, in some respect it may, but for the most part, you can't predict who's going to be a first-time offender.
Yeah.
I mean, if you know, someone who has a clean record is going to pass that background check, and usually those background checks, especially the federal fingerprint-based background checks, are dependent on them actually having the fingerprint of the person in the first place, and the FBI actually makes their database out of smaller police departments, so they have to be making sure that they're up to date, pulling all the information from these police departments. It's like, I mean, does it really make us safer? And I actually went to a forum last night that said that taxi cab drivers are actually they have like the highest rate of sexual assault in any sector of the economy, in terms of just the highest rate of you experience sexual assault at a higher rate in taxi cabs.
Nick Virden, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Right.
Yeah.